Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. El Lobo, what's going on, my guy? United Airlines beat ER. Let me take a peep, actually. So what's going on over here? UAL. Oh, nice little pop, actually. Let me see the larger degree. Let me see the daily on this. I know they've been going vertical already. That is some vertical nonsense right there. Yup, sounds about right. Where are we headed to, more or less? Looks like I would find support right around this 52.5 if we get any kind of retracement. But on this push, I think you have about clear skies up towards about 56. I think yeah, 56 will be your PT on this leg up that's just been absolutely vertical. But if you're looking for a pullback, right around that 52 half is where I would look for a buy the dip type of entry if you end up getting that tomorrow. Or if it ends up gapping up, you could probably see another $2 on the gap up, in which case you're gonna miss the entire move to the upside, and it'll likely open at resistance. All right. But that's a nice little push right there. I know airlines in general have just been vertical. I think the name to go along with that that should also been vertical has been Boeing. Boeing's been absolutely out of this world. Real quick, let's kind of just get into some things related to SPY here going into tomorrow, kind of just giving you a little bit of a landscape of what we're looking at. First thing that actually kind of caught my attention here going into tomorrow is the amount of data that we have for tomorrow. Absolutely crazy. We have retail data that's going to be coming in around 8:30 tomorrow morning. That is Eastern. We also do have PPI data that's going to be coming out. Then we also have about three different Fed speakers tomorrow as well. It feels like it could be some massive volatility come tomorrow morning. So I would be a little bit skeptic. If you're looking to really play it safe, I think you play the trend after 11 a.m. Eastern. After everything is pretty much played out, we got all the Fed speakers out of the way, we get all the data out of the way. Off the top of my head as well, I know that we also do have some bond auction as well tomorrow. So that's just things that's why I say personally, if you're trying to play it safe, and keyword is safe, is that I would wait for 11 a.m. to come and then you end up playing the trend from that point forward. The other thing that I'm a little bit more skeptic as I'm going to go through SPY is that I fear that we do end up getting a gap down, but then what can end up happening is that we have a little bit of a potential V-shaped recovery, or we fall short and we end up breaking down and seeing continuation off of that. So that's just things that are kind of just skeptic on my mind right now going into tomorrow, especially knowing all the data that's on the horizon. All right. AA, what's going on, my guy? All right, so let's kind of just look at. I actually broke it down to the 30-minute here, and what did I do is I pretty much just put a simple little channel on here, right? Just to pretty much just simplify things as they are. The bigger thing to understand is that, of course, the bottom of the channel is to the bottom of this wick. Top of the wick basically defines the top resistance. But what more so defines this channel is the median of this, right? Kind of holding support off of the median dating back towards January 11th. Body holding from January 13th, and that daily candle from today literally wicked down towards the median of this channel, and we immediately saw that little recovery that we had into the end of the day, into that close. So that was something that just now, of course, kind of just gave me the landscape, a little bit of a well-defined kind of structure that I can play off of. Now I'm looking to see if there's any kind of pattern developing going into tomorrow. Well, the pattern that actually does stand out to me, if I kind of just outline that really quickly for you, is that if I just take a marker and I just outline the one pattern that stands out, it looks like we may end up potentially having a head and shoulders that could be playing out for us given to tomorrow. That's just something that's on my mind, depending exactly if we get a breakdown tomorrow, if we see a little bit of maybe of a push overnight, and that sets up the right shoulder. That's pretty much given the structure of what I'm looking at. All right, so obviously there's always an if and then, two different things that can end up happening. I'm not always going to be right. I don't have a magic 8 ball, but that's just a scenario of looking at structurally a head and shoulders to play out. Otherwise, if we take out this wick low, I'm looking at support down towards 395, and then ultimately we can trade down to 393. All right. So those are pretty much the two key levels that stand out to me. And then below the 391, the other thing that does stand out to me as well really quickly is also the gap fill that's below. So if we see a massive meltdown tomorrow, then if we break below 395, we break below 393, the next thing to really kind of just lock in on would be the continuation towards this gap fill, which would end right around 390. All right. So that is something that basically gives you all your structure to the downside. Otherwise, I'm looking to break above 400, and that would likely invalidate the fact of a structure head and shoulders playing out. and we will likely end up pushing up towards the resistance of this little channel that we have to make a new high, particularly for this year. All right. So that's just structurally what I'm looking at. I did hear someone say Moderna's flying, and that actually does not shock me, but I'll take a look at it in one quick second. Lobo, I do know that Netflix actually does have earnings come this Thursday. That actually does kick off our tech earnings. We already saw the banks that just reported dating back towards Friday, right? Now Netflix, I think the key mark on that one was right around that 350 mark, was more or less around that resistance. I want to say between 350 to 352 was more or less that key marquee resistance that I was watching on the continuation to the upside. So it would not surprise me, but I think I'll wait a little bit to analyze the Netflix chart. Let's see how it kind of plays out going into tomorrow after all this data going into tomorrow. Then I'll pretty much analyze to see if there's a better chance of a potential run up as we get what about a day or two after all this onslaught of data tomorrow. Then I think it's probably be the better chance to get a better opportunity into an entry point. All right. Let me actually take a look at that Moderna play though. Let's see what the hell's going on with Moderna. So she's about up about $10. It's not that bad. I don't know why exactly I had a channel lined up here. Why did I have a channel? Probably looks like it was a premature channel. But what I will say is that it does look like a nice little wedge that's building out here. So you kind of just smacked right into the resistance of the wedge. If I dial out to the 4 hour, probably gives me a little bit more of a better structure, and that is ideal. So if you notice the little blue line, little faded blue line going across the top of the resistance there, you basically are right at resistance of this wedge off of Moderna, and that would potentially look to set you up for continuation tomorrow. Big level to watch here for any continuation tomorrow will be up towards 207, 208. That's where you're going to meet your pretty much your critical level of resistance on continuation before potentially a retest of this wedge, which will, instead of resistance, it'll act as support right around this 199 mark that we're hovering right now. So I would look 207, 208, look to get the continuation up to that level. If you end up getting into that late, maybe we already get gapped up towards that resistance, then look for the retracement right back down to this 199 mark, and you look to play off for that for a potential buy the dip type of opportunity, or look to see if we end up getting a fake out and we play right back into the wedge. All right. But that's basically the two marquee levels that stand out to me in terms of this price action, and looking to see if we end up sustaining these gains by morning, or do we end up popping right into resistance come tomorrow morning. All right. Let's see what else there is on the radar. Prachi, good afternoon, by the way. Let's see if I can check Meta and Melly. Melly, I have not looked at in wow. I have not looked at that ticker in quite a while. But let's see what's going on with Meta first, and then I will go from there. Let's see if we can get a broader picture. Let's see. Take a look at the daily off of Meta here. Now, Meta did end up breaking my first level of resistance I was watching. That was also right around the daily 50 EMA. Or I take that back, daily 100 EMA. At 132, we broke north above that. I would watch to see if that 132 is going to act as a level of support. If we do get a red day tomorrow, if we get a dip opportunity, I will look to see if that 132 acts as a support as it was acting as a resistance before. And next pivotal resistance I'm watching to the upside is going to be up towards that 141.5 mark is what I'm looking at. Now, granted the fact, of course, you do have earnings coming up February 1st for Meta. That's when this gap fill above is going to come into radar, just to give you pretty much in advance. That's when I'm going to start to pay attention to that gap fill to see particularly how close we get up to it. And that's also going to be when you're going to be testing that gap fill more or less, is going to be contending with that 200-day daily EMA. All right. But for the immediate future going into tomorrow, the day after rather, I would watch support 132 and then looking to play that up towards 141 half would be my immediate levels to pretty much play off of. All right. The other name you mentioned was Melly. Let's take a look and see what's going on with Melly. I will say it does look like a nice little downtrend break that actually played out here on Melly. That does actually look beautiful off of the daily. That's the first thing that pretty much stood out to me is a nice daily wedge breakout that you had. That was a beautiful breakout. It does look like you are getting a little bit of a regression. I would watch to see if you get pretty much a little bit more of a further retracement. You already got a retest of the downtrend break. So I will be looking to see if you can get some consolidation. If you get that consolidation, watch to see this right around 1045, 1044. I would look to see if you hover that as support. That would be the bottom end of this range, and look to see if you get consolidation before the continuation to the upside. So 1044, 1045, that's the level I would watch for a potential buy the dip type of opportunity. And then the next strong leg to the upside should put you into resistance at 1160 would be my next level of resistance for continuation to the upside. All right. But 1044, 1045, I think that's the immediate level that you're watching for support in terms of a floor. You already got a little bit of a retracement today. If we get a red day tomorrow, that could possibly set it up for a little bit more of a further retracement right into that support level, and watch to see if that holds as your buy the dip opportunity. All right. Let's see what else there is to look at. Cass, good afternoon. I am doing well. Appreciate that. Could I take a look at Tesla? Tesla was actually on my radar going into last week. I was actually watching this one up towards 146. That is actually my next level of resistance. If I actually dial down towards right around the 4 hour, probably gives me a little bit of a better looking structure. A little bit of an awkward type of inverted head and shoulders, if you want to say so. But you have a left shoulder, you have a head, and then you had a little bit of a wedge type of right shoulder that played out. If you're following my cursor here, and then you had the gap up that basically played out into the breakout. All right. Now you're basically contending with a little bit of resistance that I'm having here right around this 131 low. And we basically got a little bit of an extension right up towards 131 half. And now I'm going to watch to see what type of retracement we end up getting. Do we get a kind of pullback? Which this, I believe it does warrant a pullback, obviously. I would watch to see if you can get a pullback down towards 126, 126 half. That'll be the mark that I particularly look to see if that ends up being a opportunity to go long. And then you get the continuation to the upside. All right. So watch 126, 126 half. That'll be the opportunity I believe you look to go long. And then you trade it right back above this 131 resistance. And depending upon your expiration, more or less, that'll pretty much contingent upon whether you look to play this little tiny gap that you have at this 136 mark, or if you end up holding out to see if we can break above 140, and in which case that'll put you into my next PT sitting at 146 half. All right. But that's pretty much the level. Like again, like I said, the downside here, more so the floors, what we always want to pay attention to. I believe that's right around that 126 mark if we get a retracement. All right. Outside of that, as I looked at a few names that you guys wanted, I kind of kicked off the live just mentioning all of the onslaught of data that we have. I think the things that actually stood out to me more so was the bigger thing was the retail data. That's going to come out tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Two names that just pop out to me in terms of looking at retail. One is looking at Walmart. And Lobo, if you're still around, I'm pretty sure you're going to be pretty much looking at this one here given tomorrow. So I will particularly look to pay attention to this one. I feel like I tried out the sprouting wedge on the 4 hour. Did I? Could have been. Yeah, I believe I tried this on the 4 hour. So I would actually be watching Walmart here. You have an ascending broadening wedge, which is typically a bearish pattern. So I will be watching if we do have bad retail data tomorrow. Watch for a little bit of a breakdown to play out here on Walmart tomorrow. It's already been such a strong move that we've relatively seen from since our lows, dating back towards June of last year. Keep an eye on this one if the retail data is going to be bad tomorrow. That's what I will particularly say. If we get a bad retail data, it'll likely be the fact that you'll see Walmart be one to break down just because given the structure of overall of a bearish ascending broadening wedge, basically the opposite of what my favorite bullish pattern is, the ascending broadening wedge. This is the bearish version of that, which for me has been one of my favorite go-to patterns, has been the broadening wedge type of action. And I'm gonna look to see if we get a breakdown here. Watching a level, a little bit of a zone, not necessarily a level here, particularly, but a zone that I'm watching is right around this 139 to 140 half is what I'm gonna look if we get a leg down. All right, so that's what I would particularly look to play off of. If we get the breakdown, watch that 130, that 139 to 140 half. That'll be the zone that you watch on a breakdown. Vice versa, I would look to play that as a little bit of a short scalp opportunity to the upside. If you do end up trying to, miss, if you miss the upside, the downside, play a little bit of the bounce, and then we should end up seeing if this is ultimately going to break the trendline support of this wedge, or do we end up just getting a stronger bounce than anticipated? In which case, that could rather take us up right up to that 150 mark if we get a solid recovery. All right. But ultimately, I want to see how we react once we get into that zone of 139 to 140 half, and that'll be right at the trendline support. in which, given the fact, I would ultimately at least count bank on the fact that you should get a short-term bounce, if not a strong reversal. All right. So that's one I want to kind of just give you an indication of. And why do I feel like we're going to get bad data as well, given the fact that this bearish pattern on Walmart? Well, if that bearish pattern wasn't convincing enough, let's take a look at Target. Because Target's another one that also has a little bit of a bearish type of action that's playing out. And I believe I can stretch this out towards the 2 hour on this channel. But you also do have an ascending channel that's playing out on Target. You have to be given the fact that we're at least going to likely end up testing the trendline support of this channel here come tomorrow. If I'm anticipating that we're going to get bad retail data tomorrow, I would be given the fact that we should end up testing the support, if not breakdown in conjunction with how I mentioned about Walmart breaking down on that bearish pattern. This could very well end up playing out to be a bearish pattern as well, in which we end up breaking the trendline support. All right. So I would say look to for this one as well to be a breakdown. Watching for continuation below this 160 half mark, and that'll play you right into trendline support down towards 159 to tap the trendline support and see if you get continuation below. Continuation below would basically be filling up this gap fill that's a tiny bit incomplete, and that'll bring you down towards 154.42 for completion of the gap fill. All right. So two rather bearish patterns that are in play: an ascending channel, which could very well break down, and then Walmart with the ascending broadening wedge that could also very well break down. So it doesn't basically lead me to good indication that retail data tomorrow is going to be rather bullish when the two marquee names of retail here, a Target and a Walmart, both look rather bearish, or look they at the least they can give us one solid leg to the downside. All right. AA Drake, are you following any tickers that have cheap but good options? That is rather tough, I will say. I believe the last low cost ticker that I more so gave out was Lyft off of the newsletter from, I believe if that wasn't last week, it was probably the week before. That was more so the cheapest one. If I would probably say the cheapest in terms of options that I can look at right now would more so be Walmart. I think that'll probably be the most suitable option for you. We'll be looking at Walmart. I believe their contracts are like usually within under $1.50, in which case I'm saying about $150 or less. More or less, you can get a decent option on that. So I would look for that, and then like I mentioned, watch that zone 139 to 140 half, in which case you're playing it down into that zone, or you're playing the reversal off of that for a short-term bounce before we end up seeing a strong reversal or a breakdown like I mentioned. All right, that'll likely be the best case scenario, I would say, out of most of the options that I'm looking at. I think Walmart is pretty much the most cheapest if I'm giving you that heads up. All right. Like I mentioned though, we got a lot of data tomorrow. We got three Fed speakers. There's Bullard. There's a few other people. If I kind of just glance at that, we got Bostic, we got Bullard, and I know that there's actually one more that's on radar. I believe it's right around like 2 o'clock, 1 or 2 o'clock. That there's the third Fed speaker that's going to be on deck. So keep an eye on that. But most of the data is likely going to be right around that 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, and we'll likely see if you're swinging overnight. I will pray for you. I literally will pray for you because you're probably going to need that prayer, especially if you're holding something long. But hopefully, we'll see how the market gives us. Maybe we even open up flat. Who knows, right? But I think I will leave it with that. Appreciate you guys joining as always. Hopefully, I was able to give you guys a little bit of a guidance, a little bit of an outlook. I did mention, and I will be a reminder, I will probably say to play it safe, keyword safe. I would say wait until 11 a.m. Eastern until all of that data's out. Basically, we're gonna have about two Fed speakers that are gonna be gone, and then you can play that trend more safely. All right. But other than that, again, appreciate you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. You guys all have a great